Hello, my name is Rachel and I work for Step 2 Young People's Health. This is part of a series of videos called How to Talk to Your Child About. This video specifically is about sex and sexual health. Since about 2020, schools have been required, secondary schools have been required to teach relationships and sex education. Primary schools can teach them sex education if they choose to, but they will consult with parents first. So your child will be learning about some of this in school. They may have supplementary questions, they may come home with things that they want to talk to you about. So just remember that this is probably going to be embarrassing for both of you. Your child may not want to ask you particular things about sex, or they may feel that you are the most comfortable and safe person to ask about sex. You may think it's weird talking to your children about sex, but they're asking you because they trust you and they love you and they know they're safe with you. It is fine to acknowledge that you don't know everything. In fact, it may be better to acknowledge that you don't know everything when it comes to sex. They don't want to hear about your sexual experiences. Please don't scar your child for life. Okay, you can give examples if you talk in the third person, but probably not. When I was younger, those kinds of conversations are probably not helpful to anyone. So in terms of sex and the things that they might talk to you about, schools tend to cover consent really well. And that starts in primary school, and it comes from things like, can I borrow a pen? Please, can I go to the toilet? You know, that's asking for permission, it's asking for consent, but it goes all the way up to talking about sexual consent, which is something that will come up in high schools round about year 9-ish. Okay, it's dependent. There's no kind of you have to do this in this year group, so it's up to schools. How to have sex is not something that's covered on the curriculum. The actual mechanics of what goes where and who does what are not covered, and it is something that children do ask about, and it's not because they're wanting to go off and do it, it's because they've never it's totally out of the realm of their experiences, that they've never thought about how it happens and they don't totally understand how it happens. Some schools cover sexual pleasure really well. It has been missed off the curriculum in the opinion of an awful lot of PSHE educators, sex educators. There should be an understanding that it's okay to enjoy having sex, and actually you probably should enjoy sex, because if you don't, there's something potentially that's not quite right there. We find when we're teaching that children don't always understand what the types of sexual activity are, so they actually think that sex is just penis in vagina sex, whereas there's lots of touching, there's oral sex, there's anal sex, there's using things to pleasure each other that are not necessarily just penetrative sex. Schools are required by law to be inclusive, and that includes sort of same-sex relationship conversations. So it might be that there are conversations along the lines of nothing is compulsory based on your gender or your sexuality. For example, 2 gay men do not have to have anal sex. Okay, and it's those conversations around you choose what is right for you and your partner. There is no tick list of what should happen sexually in each relationship. That wouldn't be appropriate, and it wouldn't be applicable to people. Some information is shared about what sexual arousal is, so that they know and they can recognise it themselves. They need to understand that sexual arousal is quite normal, and when they hit puberty and they're coming into sexual maturity, they need to understand what arousal feels like, what it looks like, so that they can identify it for what it is and act accordingly. So when we're talking about sexual health in schools, that generally covers 2 things, and that's contraceptives and sexually transmitted infections. There is another of these videos on contraceptives, which will give you some information and some tips on answering questions, so it may be that you want to head over to that one afterwards. On this one, I'll focus on sexually transmitted infections because that's not included anywhere else yet. Okay, so STIs. There's an awful lot of stigma around STIs and around testing, and we need to reduce that. We need to make sure our young people are comfortable in talking about it and testing for them. And I think a lot of this has come from stigma generated in the 80s and 90s around the AIDS crisis, and lack of education. I don't know about you as parents, but my sexual education at school was woeful. You may have just had the traumatic birthing video, it may have involved condoms on carrots and that kind of thing, and it wasn't helpful to anybody. So your knowledge of STIs might be very, very limited, and it might be based on rumour rather than actual fact. The picture that you can see there is actually a worksheet aimed for teachers and educators, and it's on the Brook website. They're a big charity. I'll talk about them in a little minute. And it gives you information about some of the big STIs and about symptoms, diagnosis and treatment. Guys, you get away quite easily. You get to wee in a jar and have your urine dipped. Ladies, unfortunately, yours is a vaginal swab. But you can take that swab to the bathroom in the sexual health clinic and swab yourself. Okay, you don't have to whip your knickers off and show everybody what you've got. Okay. Different cultural groups have different levels of engagement with STI testing. White British is the biggest group that engage in the UK. Sub-Asian continent women is a very, very small represented group. Black men is not a hugely represented group either. And that potentially is due to cultural differences and cultural understanding of STIs. It's recommended that you test every time you get a new partner, or if you've had unprotected sex, and it's just to keep yourself safe. So lots of people were doing COVID tests just to make sure that they were all right. This is very similar. It's just like an MOT for your body. You're just making sure that you're okay and that you're safe, because for some of these things you might have absolutely no symptoms whatsoever. They could be as easy as catching a cold. Some of the different strains, particularly of chlamydia and gonorrhea, are extremely easily transmissible, and unfortunately that means you could have it, you don't know you have it, and that you're passing it on to others. The tests are free, they're really easy to get. Like I said, it's a little less invasive if you're a person with a penis than it is if you're a person with a vulva. But you can also now, once you're over the age of 16, order these tests to do at home too. So in terms of getting support, you can offer to find out information together. Your child will not be expecting you to be an expert on this, but they will want your advice and guidance. Tell them where they can get confidential support, and I'll explain that in a second. Try and remain calm and level-headed. It's a difficult thing to talk about, so if you need to do the whole can we just pause there a second, I need to go for a wee. Okay, go and have a minute in the bathroom, get your head straight, okay, calm down, do some breathing exercises or something, or can we just pause for a second to go and make a brew? Okay, that'll give you a bit of time. It'll give you both a bit of time to decompress and to process what is being said. Try not to judge your child. Don't immediately think, oh my God, they're having sex with 3/4 of the city, they're doing X, Y and Z behind my back, they want to know because they're promiscuous, this, that and the other. Actually, they probably just want to know because they heard something at school and they're curious. Don't demand to know why they're asking. If they want to share that information, fine. If they don't want to, leave it. Okay. Please don't ban them from having a sexual partner, even if you're just joking, like, oh my God, you're not having a boyfriend or girlfriend for the next 25 years. That might seem like the easiest response at the time, or a suitable response at the time, but actually long term that is not helpful, because that child then potentially won't want to come forward and say that they do have a partner, and it could kind of drive the relationship a bit underground and be a bit secretive, and that actually is proven to make them less likely to ask for support or help from anywhere, not just from you. So some services, obviously we're a Bradford based charity, so some of these are local to us, but if you Google your local sexual health service, if you are not in the Bradford area, you'll get information. These are health related issues, so the NHS can be your first port of call. They've got loads of good information on the website where you can find bits and pieces that you need. Brook is the national charity that I mentioned that had that worksheet. They have lots of different worksheets on their website. They have a whole resources section that are designed for teachers to use. But if you're sitting having these conversations with your child and you both need to learn about it, there's no harm in you going onto the resources section and finding information. They also actually have some courses for teachers and educators that are totally free. You just put your email address in to get signed up to it. And they provide lots of really helpful information around some of the RSE related topics. Locala look after all the sexual health services in Bradford. You can see they have a chat sexual health service there. So this is the confidential part that I was talking about. If your child wants a confidential chat with a nurse about something, got this itch, or me and my partner are thinking about doing this, they can text a nurse. It's just a mobile number, so it's not going to flash up Locala Sexual Health. They could save it as somebody's name if they wanted to, okay? But they can have those confidential chats with an expert. You've got BASH, Bradford and Airedale Sexual Health, loads of really good information on their website, especially for parents and things as well. So Google BASH Bradford or Bradford BASH and you should be able to find that. I work for Step 2, we work with James and Hale and we deliver relationships and sex education in schools across the Bradford district. James is an independent school, Hale is a health action charity. They do lots of sexual health work, social prescribing, loads of different sort of elements. Step 2 is sexual health and mental health, so we do counselling and therapies as well. If you need to contact us about anything, feel free. You can go through the website, you can go through any of our social medias. If you've just got questions that you need a little bit of support with, get in touch. We'll get the question to the right person and we'll make sure you get the information that you're looking for.